Disclaimer: the views expressed by the host of Insider Exchange do not necessarily represent those of our clients, sponsors, partners, or guests and should not be considered investment advice in any way. Similarly, the views and opinions of our guests and clients do not necessarily reflect those of our hosts or on our platform. Nothing shared on this platform should be read as constituting investment advice of any kind on the part of Insider Exchange. Any of its hosts, guests, partners, or sponsors trading and investing carry varying levels of risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Please ensure you fully understand the risk and take appropriate care to manage your risk. We strongly advise that you obtain independent financial, legal, and tax advice from regulated professionals and institutions before proceeding with investment decisions. Can I go and play now?
Have you seen the national kit? The new one?
Yes, because the new one sent to me.
Yeah, have you seen that?
It actually looks pretty cool.
It does. I was saying, for the longest time, haven't been a fan of the national soccer kits that have come out, particularly around the 2010 World Cup and beyond, right? When I saw this kit, I missed the yellow one. There's a yellow alternative for that. I imagine that's our away kit. Is that our home kit? Okay, so the yellow one's our home kit, the green one's our away kit. Why can we not make the green one our home kit, guys? The green one looks so much better than the yellow one.
But we're playing in Mexico, so we were away.
No, we were never going to travel that way anyway. Nobody's going that way.
Hey?
Nobody's going that way.
Where are we going?
It's America, Si. You won't get in even if you go. You'll make it to the airport, and then they'll run you through some system and be like, no.
The opening game? Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. You won't get in.
We're still not sure if the opening game is going to happen at this point, given the President of the United States, but that's a story for another day.
That's happening in Mexico.
Yeah, well.
Us versus Mexico. Much like last time, it was Mexico versus us.
Yeah, I don't.
It is a lucky kit.
It is. It's a very nice kit. I would get my hands on one of those.
Bank? Does Standard Bank sponsor it?
Yes.
Hey, Standard Bank, hit us up.
Standard Bank
sponsor the kit. 3 yellows, 3 greens, a medium, a large. We sorted. We will wear them with pride.
Oh, we must make some calls after this. Let's kick things off. Let's get the show on the road.
Unfiltered 98, our current shot collapsing.
Privilege of welcoming one of our good friends into studio.
So not even Buffett listens to Buffett. Sue me, China, if you must.
1 or 22 on AC, but you're not getting that at home.
And there's quite a bit to discuss.
The stock is cheap.
The last podcast I did.
Introduce me.
I'm Jimmy Mantashe.
And I'm Simon Brown.
Welcome to Insider Exchange.
Hello and welcome to Insider Exchange, the show that seemingly tries to make sense of all the global financial developments, but all the while our producer doesn't like us, so he gives us ridiculous challenges. We continue to figure out how it is that we navigate the world because we're getting into useful updates. Time's already started. He didn't care. First update, straight into the World Cup. We spoke about the kit. We like it. It's great. We're less than 74 days, I think 74, 73 days, global countdown to the World Cup. Is the World Cup going to happen? Because at this rate, we did a conversation around this. We did a dive into this and the cost of the World Cup. I don't see anyone from our side traveling that way just to go and sit there and have to deal with Orange Mussolini.
It's going to happen, but there might not be many people in
empty
the stands.
Stadiums.
I don't know. There's 300 million Americans. They can fill it up.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Sure.
Okay, so the World Cup happens, nothing to worry about. Well, I guess across 3 countries as well, Canada, Mexico, and South Africa, and the United States. South Africa's playing in Mexico. I wouldn't mind being there for that one.
Mexico would be fun.
Mexico would be fun.
And it's a repeat of the 2010 opening game.
There we go. 16 years later. Nice.
Okay. So America's bankrupt.
We knew this.
I thought we knew this too.
This is not new information.
So why is it all over my screen? Everyone's so excited because America's bankrupt. They got liabilities exceed assets.
It's a simple accounting equation.
By 6 trillion.
No. The accounting equation itself is simple, but they use US GAAP, so you never know which way that's going to go.
They use GAAP, which stands for generally accepted
accounting principles, and they use a deviation of that.
So
US GAAP.
They take their generally accepted, which basically means we make it up, and they say, "Nah, we're not going to use that."
Hence the US part at the beginning, right? So United States generally accepted accounting principles.
Okay, so no one cares.
No one cares. We know this. They're going to move the debt ceiling. When have they not? Nothing new about that, right? What is interesting is Switzerland might not be as neutral as we think. For years, we've always known that Switzerland is the neutral country, right? Yeah. Now, Switzerland has been buying the US Patriot system. Patriot defense systems, right? So they put down some money to buy Patriot systems last year, but they halted that those funds and they froze the deposits and said, "Look, we are awaiting you guys supplying, there were supply issues and all of that. America has redirected those funds to other things like F-35 fighter jets in the war in Iran. Now, America's reasoning here and the rationale...
this sounds like the Oakley slides into my DMs, but carry on.
America's rationale here is the Foreign Military Sales Program. This is the specific piece of legislation or regulation that governs these transactions between the American government and other countries' governments where they purchase from America. It allows them to redirect funds to other projects from certain projects as they see fit. So the money that Switzerland had put down for one American defense system has now suddenly been redirected unilaterally by America into another financial project, i.e. war in Iran.
Could we just fence off that entire country and just get on without them? I'm starting to think this would be...
Wait till I get to our unfiltered opinion later in the show.
Okay. Fourways Mall is apparently turning around because it has, wait for it, attaches in a pantry.
Oh!
Hey, look, I live close to the pantry is special.
Yes.
I also be careful because it can be financially ruined. So you pick up some random little tin or something and your credit card dies. But
so this is my thing with the pantry. It's a brilliant business model in how novel it is and how they use a lot of artisanal and private label brands. But is it scalable? Because there's a pantry in Bosonia as well. There's a pantry now. How scalable is that kind of business model? Fourways might be a perfect market for it, given its proximity to the likes of Broadacres, Cedar, and Stain
City. But is it easy access and stuff? Because that's the whole thing as well. They're petrol stations, right? Zip in, zip out.
It. Well, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that one shapes up, and we'll see where it goes. In the meantime, we have to try, and this is just probably should have made our Make It Make Sense, but it is Trump rearing his ugly head again, as always. Two parts. Part one is comments around Iran and saying that they have agreed to a 15-point ceasefire plan, to which Iran has immediately responded with, no, we didn't. And the other part is comments made around the Saudi Crown Prince. I'm going to play you a video of exactly what he said. We're going to play the video so that it's not my words.
He didn't think this was going to happen. He didn't think he'd be kissing my ass. He really didn't. He thought he'd be.
That's all we need to hear from the video. We'll make up what you will of that. But saying that about the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, the one ally you've got in the Middle East, the one country that controls the OPEC bloc, make of it what you will.
And who his sons are doing a ton of business with, but nonetheless. Gwede Mantashe assures us supply. I have some questions for Mr. Gwede Mantashe. Firstly, he said we should just stay at home. Okay, that's cool. I'll stay at home. Send me money. I'll stay at home. Then he said if you're buying diesel to sell it at profit, that's illegal. And every petrol station in the country was like, oops. Because this is their business model, buying diesel to sell it at a higher price. And here we sit approximately, 40 hours from the catastrophic, whatever, petrol and diesel price increase. I've got to drive to KZN twice this month, next month, April. And the DMR is...
They're telling us not to worry. They're like, no, it's fine. What I found interesting about that was they said that because of our great relationship with Iran, ships to South Africa won't be constrained by the Strait of Hormuz. Well, supply to South Africa effectively wouldn't be constrained. The question that raises is, that doesn't mean that price is not going to be adjusted.
Correct, Amanda.
You see, so that's the problem. That being said, we are going to get into my final update because we do still have time and we need to finish that. JP Morgan and Goldman are now offering hedging opportunities to private hedge funds against private credit. So we saw the whole big boom.
That hurts my head. Carry on.
Think about what we saw with the housing crisis. Markets weren't protected, funds weren't protected. Now we're seeing everybody that's gone betting on all of these markets, AI trends and all of that. The banks in the United States are now offering the hedge funds the opportunity to short sell and hedge their risk. If that doesn't scream waiting for a bubble to burst.
But how do you short an illiquid market? How's JP Morgan Goldman hedging the hedge?
By funding a war, Simon. How else? Gosh.
Okay. Lesotho wants more for its water. Lesotho has us by the ears because they have all our water. When I say our, I mean Gauteng. Right. And this deal was supposed to get renegotiated. So it starts in the 80s. And let's be clear, at that point, it was a military dictatorship, essentially. Sorry, Lesotho, but it kind of was in Lesotho. And it was just a dictatorship, apartheid state in South Africa, and they negotiated this deal for the water, and then they were supposed to renegotiate it, and they never did. And now they're building a new dam, and now Lesotho is saying, how come there are people living by the dam and they don't have water? How come we have their water? And Lesotho is just going to say, I don't know what they're going to say, but like, I'm going to say I'm on Lesotho's side. What the hell?
This is Botswana all over again. Botswana saying that De Beers is taking too much of the diamond profits. Same example.
I was on Botswana's side too, although I did think they should buy Jimmy Choo, but nonetheless.
No, well, that's all we've got time for. That's useful updates. We have made it with 10 seconds to spare. Our producer looks vexed. We don't care because we survived and we get snacks. That's useful updates. What do we get this week?
Oh, dude, you can't even read it because it's not in English.
I can tell you it's coffee. And we move on to our deep dive. We are diving into rebrands. We have seen them become the popular trend and craze of late. So we're going to be diving into what goes into a rebrand and why some companies decide to do it.
Because they got caught.
That's certainly one way to start the dive. Yeah, okay.
So there are two types of rebrands.
Okay.
The one where you stare hard and you can't see it.
Okay. Okay.
And the other one where like, who were they? Oh, they were baddies. Oh.
New name, new us. Yes. New hair, who's this? Fair enough. But those are... You're right, Si. Those are largely the two types of rebrands. One where it's, no, we're doing this because it's in line with some strategy or this or that. And then some of it is really dodgy.
Yeah, I mean, some of it, look, there is often times where there is a reason which oftentimes escapes me, but where there is a rebrand. There's also rebrands as in like reproduct design. Like I'm thinking New Coke back in the 80s, which was, that got unrebranded quick. But I mean, let's think about, and let's think branding and let's think images and let's go back to 100 years ago and think around those images. They I hate the phrase, but they stale and need refreshing, truthfully. And that's where rebrands, I mean, I know it's all like marketing speak, but yeah.
Yeah, so some legacy brands that have been the same for so long will do, and some of these have...
Shield is what?
Yeah, Rexona. Now, that is in an effort to align with the global brand, offering the same sweat protection. So Shield, the next time you walk into a Checkers, is not going to be called Shield anymore.
You see, I'm like, what about that poor person he's probably also, if you're using Shield, you must be in your 70s. There's this poor person who's walking into Checkers and now it's going to smell. Because they couldn't find
the shield. They're going to be so confused. But this is the thing.
Axe. Ego became Axe.
And that's the important thing about rebrands is letting your customers know, right?
Well, unless you are abandoning customers and moving on.
Unless you don't want them to know.
Well, because in the case of Shield, like I don't know, Shield or Revexo, but like Shield's been around for 100 years, right? So your customers are dying off. You've still got this product. You've got to get the young peeps. But then Old Spice. Remember, Old Spice was like, no, hell, we're going to lean into
We're just going to be old and stale. Exactly. But this is the thing. So some companies elect to stay with their image. And some of them, like you say, over centuries are like, okay, maybe we do need and the one kind of case I can understand is mostly Japanese companies, because those companies are around for more than 100 years minimum in most cases. So after 100 years, you're like, yeah, you know what, maybe we should refresh some paint. That kind of makes sense. But then you also get companies where there's a story behind it. At least we're told there's a story behind it, right? So most recent rebrand I can think of that aligns with a story narrative is Sasfin changing from Sasfin Securities to Otto 1890. There's a story or explanation around it penned by David Shapiro, who everybody knows, around the history behind the name Otto and the year 1890 and how that lines up with the business. The reasons why companies do rebrands are clearly sometimes very specific, but also sometimes, like you said, you have to kind of look really hard and try and figure it out. Another example I think of is Time Bank going into Go Time. Now, we know the Go Time CEO, thankfully, from our side, and perhaps we'll have him on the show to see what sparked that rebrand and what drove that. But that was another example where very subtle, completely different to the Otto 1890 case, but equally a rebrand of Time.
Yeah, it is. And it's also, I mean, if you are going to be sort of, changing the business, tweaking the business, whatever the case is. At the same time, do yourself a brand. I mean, in the case of Time, I mean, there isn't, they're abandoning Pick and Pay, but they broadly the same again. It's also, I imagine, you launch a business, in the case of Time, you've got tons of ideas of how this is going to happen and stuff, and then stuff happens, and you realize, maybe not quite there, etc., etc. In the case of Time, they've got the big shareholders out of Brazil, but I doubt that has very much to do with it. It is just, I mean, it's Otto, what year are we looking at?
1890.
1890 is brave. I mean, go Time. I mean, it's basically,
same kind of thing. But a complete change, you're right, is a very brave move. But sometimes, as you say, Si, it's also potentially forced, right? So think of Caltex and Astron. They had to become Astron because the parent company decided that was the decision they were taking. So sometimes it's out of your hands when you're bought out by a company. So, for example, Engine could, for example, suddenly rebrand, given that Vitol now owns the Engine brand and the Engine name. Canal Plus buying MultiChoice, they could decide to rebrand whatever they want. It is now their company. Yeah. Sometimes that does happen.
And they do it with the sort of global strategy.
This is what our global strategy looks like.
With Astron Energy / Caltex. I mean, I still remember the Caltex bunnies, which again, maybe is why they should change. And you used to get a Coca-Cola glass. Disappointingly, no Coca-Cola. But they, at least, they're there. I'm driving down the road, it's still there, it's a different brand, but I know what it sells me, nice and simple. Port Elizabeth to Gqeberha. Now, to be clear, I think Gqeberha is a great name. Why do we need to name it after a lady who's dead? But like you're driving down the freeway, you might forget to turn.
That's actually a valid point. On that, you bring that up, and I wanted to look at...
Yeah, no, carry on.
Those name brands that we do from a country perspective, right? A lot of what we're being told, or what we've been told over the years, is the legacy of apartheid is still here. We now need to get rid of that. We need to honor some of our struggle heroes. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with restorative justice and fixing things of the past. But can it not cost us an arm, a leg, and half of our budget unnecessarily? Well, surely there's a more efficient way to rebrand and change these things, because at the moment it's feeling less like wanting to redress things and more like wanting to just move some money for some people.
Well, and unfortunately that's where we sit. But I hear you. I absolutely hear you. But it is, and that's unfortunately where, as a country, just like if money's moving, we just assume there's people eating at the trough.
And that's because we have been conditioned to not have trust. But the trust has been eroded.
For these folks who then come, I remember they renamed one of the streets, Smith Street in Durban, I think it was. They renamed it. And everyone was really upset because apparently there had been a Mr. Smith.
Oh.
I'm like, no one knew that until you changed the name.
Clearly not, exactly.
No, I mean, like the people went and like they were barking up trees here, etc.
Yeah. No, again,
so I get you. There is a thing there, but it is. There's also the distinction between changing what the picture looks like.
Yes.
And changing the name. I mean, Apple's done it a couple of times, and it's one thing because it's still Apple. It's just a different looking Apple.
There we go.
Changing the name is brave.
And also that's the thing in Rebrand, right? It's different to just adjust the logo. I mean, take our brand, for example. When we started Insider, it looked a little different to what it looks like now. We're comfortable with the brand now. We like our brand. We've tweaked it here and there. We've played around with it and all of that. Sometimes companies don't have the luxury of being able to do that in the early days, and you kind of want to do it after a year, after you've got momentum and all of that. The rebrand itself is not the issue. But when you fundamentally change the architecture of the business in terms of how it is seen in the market, that's a completely different thing to just slapping on a new logo or changing your color scheme.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, and as I said, oftentimes, I mean, this is many, many years ago, Standard Bank changed their brand, but all they did was change the curve of the shield.
And anyone notice? Well, you noticed, clearly.
No, because someone told me. But yeah, And then it comes back to, I mean, forget about the cost of rebranding Gqeberha or Robert Sobukwe or whatever. Is the cost that Caltex is spending. Yo. I mean, this is money.
850 service stations that you now have to go and rip off all of the canopies because you can't keep any aspect of the red canopy into an orange and purple canopy. You can't repurpose any of that. So the whole canopy comes down.
It can't be less than $1 million each.
No, that's a modest number.
This is billions.
$1 million each. That is a modest number.
So let's say, I mean, it's millions each. They're doing 850. This is billions of ZAR.
It's an expensive exercise. Think about the educational institutes in South Africa. The likes of Pearson Institute that are now known as EduVos. Emerus was formerly IIE. There's so many of these rebrands happening that it's difficult to kind of keep up with some of them. And I suppose the question then is, what does that kind of rebrand do to the company's valuations? I mean, you'd ideally want it to reinforce your position in the market or strengthen your position in the market. But I can imagine sometimes it erodes an element of trust because now people don't know the new name. You haven't told them about the new name. The common person on the street that doesn't have the luxury of enjoying the Insider Exchange podcast that tells them about these things might not understand what's happening, why the rebrand, what's going on. And does that then enhance trust or does it erode it?
I mean, I think it's dangerous. I mean, I think it's dangerous. I mean, just One Lap went through a rebrand about a decade ago. We kept the name, we kept the coloring broadly, we changed the logo, and we got a new design on the website. The website design I thought was poor. It wasn't poor, it was Flash-based, and Flash was dead.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve Jobs. But we did it very, very carefully. Still cost an alarming amount of money, but we did it very, very carefully just to make sure that you don't just, otherwise people come to your site and they don't know who you are.
And it's weird because as someone who's started more than one business venture, I've gone through this conversation, right? And what I try to do is I try to map out the brand ahead of time because I want to avoid the rebrand conversation. You try to look at, okay, if this is the brand, how is this going to go? How far is this going to last you and all of that? But at the end of the day, you are, again, subject to external factors. You might go in and say, I want to call this Jimsum. We go and register the company and oops, Jimsum's not available as a name. Now we have to rethink everything. So we just launch under a different name and say, we'll come back later and figure it out later, but let's get a product off the ground, But how much of what goes into a brand in terms of building brand equity? Because for a lot of the one thing that you can build is brand equity associated with a name. The name Simon Brown is known in the market. The one benefit you have there is now there's a clear distinction between this Simon Brown and the other two Simon Browns that were in your class back in the day, right? In the market. So
there's so many Simon Browns. There's so many Simon Browns. The one Simon Brown stuck his head out a train and lost his head.
Thankfully, it's not you because you still have your head. But this is the thing. It's easier from a personal brand perspective to, I suppose, build and retain the brand because sometimes if it's tied to a name, if it's tied to your name, it's more of a personal story. But when you come to a corporate and you come to an institution, I mean, universities rename all the time, streets, towns, companies, all of that kind of rebrand is something that looks very, very different to just saying, hey, I'm now no longer going to go by my first name. I'm going to go by my middle name, for example, or whatever that looks like. But essentially, that could be a rebrand as well. The question, again, we come back to whether or not this is beneficial or harmful, or like you said, Si, what are you trying to hide?
Yeah, and I mean, and it's got to be, I think you've got to be careful. I think there are departments out there and there are experts, and we know some of them, the brand gurus, etc., who never need a reason. They're just looking for a brand to change. Like this is what they do. And you got to be careful about running off and changing your brand and losing your customers. And then backlash. Cracker Barrel. Well, I have no idea what Cracker Barrel is, but they changed the brand. They upset the snowflakes, mega snowflakes. And so the Cracker Barrel went back. Yeah.
See, now you've spent money to do the rebrand.
Now you just
it hasn't worked out. Now you got to spend money to undo it. And now you just look very, very silly.
Yeah, you just look very, very silly.
When does it work? When does...
I think when it properly... I mean, and again, I'm using marketing term, and I don't know what it actually means. But when brands get stale.
So revitalizes.
Refreshing, revitalizing, all of those type of things. I get that. And maybe it's just partly the stale, perhaps, is just familiarity. We've seen it so much that we are like, yeah, it's boring now.
But familiarity breeds memory. I mean, if I sit there and something is familiar, I can tie it to a memory, I can tie it to an experience. Whether that experience is good or bad is another conversation, but it means I can identify something easier. If as you said, if you suddenly are driving down the road, the name of the off-ramp has changed, you're like, oh wait, did I miss the off-ramp? Or, have I taken the right road? Do I turn here?
Yeah.
It becomes quite confusing. And you then sit, okay, does it make sense? Is it worthwhile to do it? Does it have benefit at the end of the day?
Yeah, you see, I think it's changing a logo is fundamentally different to changing a name. Changing the name.
Changing a name is a rebrand is a big thing. How many brands from your youth are still around? Or how many brands from your youth can you still remember that might not exist today?
Dude, I'm old.
Okay, let's leave out half your youth.
There's lots of my youth I just don't remember. So all the radio stations changed their names.
Yes.
Post-apartheid. So Springbok Radio became SAFM. Port Natal became East Coast, and so on and so on. I can't even remember, but they all changed their names. 5FM stayed, I think, as 5FM.
5 is now, I think it's just called 5 now. They went through a 5FM, then they dropped the FM, now they're just 5. Highveld, 947. No, Highveld then went 94.7. And then now they dropped the point. Now it's just 947. So it happens all the time, apparently.
Yeah, apparently if you're in radio, you have to include your numbers. Otherwise, people can't find you on the dial.
Yes.
Which actually says a lot about branding then, right?
SAFM is SAFM 104 to 107. So that band.
Yeah. And hot, it's not hot.
It's 102.7.
It's hot 102.7.
Yes.
They drop the dots. There's no dots in names because it gets... But yeah...
Yeah, so, okay, well, I suppose the radio ones make sense. If we look at them across sectors, right? So we've looked at the radio, we've looked at education, we've looked at private corporates and stuff. I think private corporates might be the hardest to change from a branding perspective. Educational institutions, probably second. Radio stations, well, we'll just announce it until it rings in your ears that we've changed it, I guess.
So I just went and looked for the old MoneyWeb logo.
Yeah.
It wasn't that ugly. I've seen worse.
You've seen worse.
I've seen worse.
Perhaps that's the other reason. Sometimes you just look at your company logo and you're like, who came up with this?
Yeah.
Who did this? When did they do this and why?
No, that can't be the same MoneyWeb. Yeah. No, I hear you. But then, yeah, and changing businesses and business models and stuff, and that might be a small shift as well. Yeah, approach it carefully. I don't know. Caltex, all that money, they could have put it into cheaper fuel for me on Wednesday. Just saying.
Does it do enough to repair damage if it is a damaged brand?
No, but it makes you forget.
Over time or immediately?
Over time. So, let's say that Jimson, we become bank robbers and we rob lots of banks.
Okay.
The new school way, not the old school way.
Yeah, electronically, not with...
No guns and masks. I looked at like it's all hot in the balaclava. And I would, Anyway, so let's say we become bank robbers and then we get caught as bank robbers and now we're all over the news and every time you search Jimson, you just see bank robbers. What do? You change your name to some Jim.
Rebrand. Fair enough.
Search for us. And yes, people in today will remember, but in time they'll forget. And then one day there will be two young chaps having a podcast and they'll say, those Jimsons, didn't they have another name?
Okay. So maybe it can be used as a tool to change perception, to change how people
running away from the past.
Ooh, that's a harsh way to put it, but I mean it is true.
Yeah,
it is.
I think it's what's happened quite often.
Can you really run away from your past with a rebrand? Is it that simple? Can't be that simple, surely.
I think you've also got to go live in Mexico. Colombia or so. If
the Dominican Republic where there's no extradition.
If you're not in South America, you're not really running away from your past. You're just kind of hiding in the closet. Yeah, surely. That's how I was raised.
What about Eastern Europe? Can't you hide out there? Belarus, Prague,
I don't know.
Moscow.
I'm worried that Putin might get you.
Surely that's a good thing?
Do not wish to find out.
Okay, so a rebrand can be good. It can be beneficial, but it can also save you from extinction, I suppose, if you are absolutely in need of survival.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it can make you look pretty again.
And isn't that what we all want to do, folks? Isn't that what we all hope for? To look pretty until we no longer have to. We're going to leave the deep dive on that note. We're going to get into Make It Make Sense. We're trying to make sense of a lot of things, and potentially Jimson might just do that bank robbery. Stick around. And we're wrapping things up with our Make It Make Sense. We try to make sense of things. We're terrible at it, but we persevere. First one for this week. Mm-hmm. Oh, I get so excited when I have to go through these things with you, Sai. Former Eskom CEO, Brian Molefe.
Oh, God, this story, yes.
Between 2013 and 2018, allegedly through one of companies associated with him, received 11 million rand in cash deposits via ATM transactions, across 706 ATM transactions. Now, I did a quick calculation. It works out to just under 16,000 rand per transaction. I did a separate calculation to see what that would look like.
How many did he do?
He received, allegedly...
No, but how many transactions?
706. Allegedly received over 5 years. Now, if you were
That's one every 2 days.
If you were to do 10,000 rand cash ATM deposit every day, assuming 365 days.
Or the NPAs at my front door by yesterday.
This would go on for 3 years. You'd get full 3 years.
Okay, and my fingers would be sore from pushing.
Every single day, 10,000 rand. It would take you 3 years to deposit 11 million into. Now, it went over a 5-year period, of course, over 700 transactions, so varying amounts and all of that. But what I need you to make sense of, Sai, is 11 million rand in cash deposits. Would it not just have been easier to find another way to move 11 million in cash?
Buy buffalo from our president. Or does he
had to go there?
Does he only take dollars? Hey, I'm not the one who put the money under the couch. Sorry, Cupcake. I mean, the whole thing is dodge. I mean, look, we know it's
allegedly. Allegedly, folks.
Except that if I put 11 million rand cash into ATMs over a couple of years, I would have peeps knocking at my door.
Every day, including Sundays, if you did it in 10,000 rand batches per day.
I would have people knocking at my door.
At what point do we trigger suspicious transaction notifications within a bank?
I thought it was like 10 grand.
I think cash. So I went to 10,000 because we know that the cash ATM limit is 24,999 rand or whatever for cash transactions. I think that's been reviewed.
Walking around with 24,990. I mean, I like cash. I love cash. I have 890 rand on me. Weirdly, I know that because I counted it. But I'm a lover of cash.
Yeah.
And I am exactly
24,110 short. Yeah. of obviously 25,000. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, over a 5-year period doesn't seem so bad. It requires a lot of patience, clearly, or different sources and how to figure all of that out. But it happened.
I have questions. Mind you, this was the whole state capture. They were, okay.
Allegedly, folks. Allegedly. I must just emphasize that we are not saying that we can confirm or deny that this has happened. This is allegedly what has been reported. Something else that has been allegedly reported is that a certain company based out of Lanseria at the time was selling a Gulfstream jet in 2015 that they wanted to sell to the pastor of one enlightened Christian gathering church. You might know the pastor more familiarly by his name rather than his church's name, Pastor Shepherd Bushiri. That was a $1.1 million transaction that had to be delayed because the company that was selling the jet that would receive the money did not have a money counting machine to count what at that time was about 17.7 million rand in cash.
I can get you a counting machine. And if that's your problem...
That was the problem.
Hold on, the problem was I didn't have a money counting machine because this... A
money counting machine that would count the money.
These churches are dodgy. And then they just didn't have a money counting machine. But the guy who counted it, who arrived with it, didn't they have a money counting machine?
Yeah, but if I'm going to come buy something, I'm not going to bring my own money counter. You should have your own.
I'm going to bring my money counter if you've got a money counter, because now I can't buy it because no one can count the money. Dude, we've got to count the money.
So this has come up because the National Prosecuting Authority is looking to sell that jet and looking to...
Count the money.
I would hope so. I really would hope so.
Because the shepherd man is clever. He knows that if he puts his, how much money is it?
It was $1.1 million at that time.
So $1.1 million, let's call it 20 million ZAR because it's a nice
round numbers.
Number.
Cool.
You walk into your F&B branch with 20 million ZAR, they'll count it for you.
That's true, but they might ask you some questions afterwards.
No, not well.
Or while they're counting
allegedly, it depends who you are. They ask some people questions, but other people maybe less questions, allegedly. I mean, I don't know. Are they asking questions? I don't know.
So,
because someone deposited 11 million and no one asked questions.
So this jet is
should
going...
have bought a smaller plane for 10 and a half.
Okay, and then?
Problem solved. Get the bank to count the money. Apparently the limit for other people is 11 million. We're 11 million and 10.
So, the pastor is looking to stop the NPA from auctioning off the private jet. The NPA obviously secured it as part of asset seizures. Do we want to go buy a private jet? Insider community, let us know. Do we have money between all of us to buy a private jet? And if we do, what do we do with it?
We fly it.
To where? Mexico.
Mexico. Do they go to Mexico? That's quite far.
It's a private jet. It goes wherever you want it to go.
I want to go back in time. I want to go way back in time when I was a little young nipper. And my grandfather, who lived to be 96, he fought in both of the world wars. And he gave me some advice. He says, if you're going to do sport, you must do tennis or golf because the old peeps still play and you can make money in your old age. There's no 60-year-old rugby player, but there is a 60-year-old golfer or tennis player earning back.
Fair.
Yeah. So that was his first piece of advice. His second piece of advice was, if you're going to start a business, start a bank or a church. He said the problem with banks, though, is regulation. And this was the 80s. Like, he had no idea how much regulation was coming down the line. The man was right. What you want to be is a tennis-playing pastor. Man, you have got bucks. Makes perfect sense.
Okay, we've made sense of it. Become a tennis-playing pastor, and you too can buy a 17 or 18 million rand jet in cash.
Do you think you'd be able to afford a money counting machine with all that money?
I've got one more. I'm going to try and get through it. I've got one more.
Because I'm making sense here, man. I'm rolling today.
You are on a roll. Okay. Nestle has reported that between Italy and Poland, they had 12 tons of Kit Kats stolen. Almost 400,000 Kit Kat candy bars, or 413,000 rather, Kit Kat bars stolen while in transit between Italy and Poland. I guess someone needed a break.
Yeah, but you can, according to my map, you can fly that for 847 ZAR. How many Kit Kats were stolen?
12 tons or 413,000 candy bars.
How?
I think it was being transported by road, if I'm not mistaken. The shipment of crunchy bars disappeared last week while en route between production and distribution locations.
It's a 20-hour drive. You've got to go through the mountains. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could see things going wrong. Austria, Austrians, I mean, I don't know. You got to go through Czechia, past Slovakia.
Can you pay for a private jet?
14,000 Kit Kats.
400,000.
Sorry, 400,000 Kit Kats.
Yes.
I like Kit Kat. I'm a fan of Kit Kat. That's too much Kit Kat.
Is it enough to buy you a private plane?
They're $20 each.
Huh?
No.
No?
It doesn't even buy you a private plane. Because you know what? There isn't. Kit Kat counting machine.
You have to count those individually.
Yeah, that you have to do by hand. No Kit Kat counting machine.
Yeah. So I guess someone was really, really upset in life and decided they really need a break.
Okay.
Can't make sense of that one, but we can make sense of the others.
Hey, no, stealing chocolate makes sense. I got no problem with that.
Stealing chocolate makes sense. Okay. What's the rationale there? It's chocolate. It's chocolate.
So not for the person who's being robbed, but for the robbery.
The robber.
The bad person.
The bad person in the story. Person. All right, so it does absolutely make sense that you shouldn't, folks. We're not encouraging crime. We're just telling you what crimes have taken place. And on that note, we're going to leave the show. We're going to wrap it up. Before we go, we're going to leave you with an unfiltered opinion of the week. This one, very apt to South Africans and comes at a timely point as we go through probably one of the worst fuel price increases this week that we have ever seen as a country. Single fuel price increase at once. And the unfiltered opinion around that is, do you know, Si, how much you can store in fuel before you have to get a license?
1,000 liters.
200 liters.
Hey,
200 liters is the regulation.
The 190 liter tank. Well, it's a tank plus a spare tank.
Well, so that's fine. As long as those tanks are attached to the vehicle, technically that's in the vehicle. Additional to that, depends though, of course.
200 liters.
Depends. It depends on whether it's petrol or diesel. Folks, please do not go and hoard the fuel. It makes no difference to our lives. We're still going to pay more for it. We need to solve this problem differently. Hoarding the fuel is definitely not the solution. We're not encouraging that, but there's regulation around how much flammable substance you need to, or you're able to store before you need to obtain a flammable substance certificate.
Flammable. I want to be a flammable substance inspector. That sounds like
the one that issues the certificates.
Yeah, that's like a Mr. Gadget type thing. Inspector Gadget. I'm here to inspect you. Flammable. Okay, I'm struggling.
Okay, so how would you inspect it? So are you just going to walk around with a lighter and see if it sets on fire? What's your plan here?
That was my plan. And then ask for your permit.
Oh, okay. This thing is flammable. I need a permit from you.
I hadn't thought of that part.
Okay.
Yeah. But I see these folks driving down the road with 500-litre tanks on their back. They got a permit.
I'm just telling you what the bylaws and the legislations of different municipalities tell us.
We could stop and say that you are a flammable person inspector. That one's going to know no better. And ask for their license. And if
and
they
then take the fuel.
Confiscate it. You can pick it up at Hillbrow Police Station any night of the week.
These are the conversations we're not going to have on the show because they get us into trouble, but we love them anyway. That's the show for today, folks. Investing isn't hard. Just try it.
Disclaimer. The views expressed by the host of Insider Exchange do not necessarily represent those of our clients, sponsors, partners, or guests and should not be considered investment advice in any way. Similarly, the views and opinions of our guests and clients do not necessarily reflect those of our hosts or on our platform. Nothing shared on this platform should be read as constituting investment advice of any kind on the part of Insider Exchange. Any of its hosts, guests, partners, or sponsors trading and investing carry varying levels of risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Please ensure you fully understand the risk and take appropriate care to manage your risk. We strongly advise that you obtain independent financial, legal, and tax advice from regulated professionals and institutions before proceeding with investing decisions. Can I go and play now?